So we're going to work on solving this ratio here. Now, ratios are actually the same as fractions. They're a little harder to look at this way, and since we're a little more used to working with fractions, I'm going to turn both of these into a fraction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the number that comes first, this will be the numerator. Okay? So he's going to be the numerator in both of our fractions. Okay? And what I mean by that is we're going to have two equal, the equal sign's the same, and the numerator is going to be the top number in both fractions. And I'm going to make the other number the denominator in both fractions. Okay, so now they're equivalent fractions. Let's write them in. Well, this becomes 15 over 4, and this becomes 30 over x. Okay, there's a couple ways to do this. One way is to think in your head, do a lot of mental math of 15 to 30. What do I do to get from 15 to 30? What do I need to multiply by? 2. Okay, so in other words, whatever I do at the top, I got to do the bottom. 4 times 2 would give us what?
You can't do that.
You can do this. 4 times 2 is going to give us 8. Just 8.
Oh.
So our ratio. Huh? Hold on. So, essentially, x would be equal to 8 in this question. We just figured out that the new fraction is over 8. But this way can be very difficult if we don't get whole numbers. Okay, sometimes you got to divide by a fraction and stuff like that. So there's another way we can do this. Okay, let's go to the OR. Now, I'm hoping you still remember how to turn it into the fraction. Okay, because we still want it in fraction form. But instead we do 15 over 4 is equal to 30 over x. Okay. Well, when you have equivalent fractions, you do something called cross multiplying.
That's what I don't understand.
That's what they
I
show.
don't have a number.
So what we're going to do is we're only going to move one at a time. So I'm going to move the x over up to the 15. So 15 times x over 4 is equal to 30. Okay, and I move the x out of the way, so he's gone. And now the next one I'm going to move is I'm going to move the 4 up to the 30. So I have 15 over 15x. Sorry, I wrote that wrong. Okay, because the 4 will now be gone because we moved it over. 15x is equal to 30 times 4. Do those two steps make sense?
No.
No? Let's go through them one more time. Okay. So cross multiplying means you take the number, okay, on the bottom right, and multiply it by the number on the top left. The number on the bottom left and multiply it by the number on the top right. You can only do this when there's an equal sign between them. Don't get that confused when multiplying. Remember, multiplying, we just do the top by the top, bottom by the bottom. That's because there's an x between. If there's an equal sign between them, then we switch like this. That's what that means. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm multiplying these. So if you noticed, the first step, let's talk about the first step. Let's erase all of this and go through it again. I'm going to rewrite them. The 15 over 4 is equal to the 30 over x. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the x, okay? So I'm going to move the x up to where the 15 is. I'm going to multiply by that 15. So I'm going to get, what's 15 times x?
15x.
Yeah. We're still divided by 4. It hasn't gone anywhere. The only difference is the x is no longer on the bottom, so we just write 30.
Oh, okay.
Now the same idea, this time I'm going to move the 40 up to here, to the 30, and we're going to multiply the 30 times 4. So what would 30 times 4 be? No? I'll tell you quickly.
120.
120. Good. 120. But on this side, we no longer have to write the 4 because we moved it to the other side. Okay?
I thought you didn't have to write the x.
The x is still there because the x was on top. We weren't moving the x. We were only moving the number on the bottom to the other side. Just like we moved the x on the bottom to this side. See how when we moved the x, it went on top? And when we moved the 4, well, technically it went on top over here, and we multiplied the 2 to get to 120. I want you to look at that carefully. Okay? Because there's still technically one more step. We're trying to solve for what x is alone. Which means, how do I move 15 over if it's 15 times x? I need to divide.
Don't you go something like you go over to the next side of the equation or something?
Well, once we have this, our goal is to get x by itself. So when I divide by 15s, the 15s will cancel out. And 120 divided by 15, I think, is 8. Just like we had found above.